Who is Noelle? We've all seen the memes of how she's best maid, best waifu, second useless character after Amber, but as anyone who plays Genshin long enough realizes, any character can become overpowered. And as a Noelle main, I absolutely love her. She's the ultimate mix of shielding, healing, DPS, crowd control, list goes on and on. She's just the best all-rounder there is. And as I continued to play her and unlock her stories, I started to get more and more interested in her background. What I found was her origins, while short, are both heart-wrenching and inspiring. So, let's dig into it.
My name is Noelle, maid of the Knights of Favonius.
So, to begin with, Noelle's constellation is the Parma Quarters, which, roughly translated from Latin, means the Heart's Shield. And the Heart's Shield is a great way to describe Noelle, because through her simple acts of kindness, she keeps the darkness at bay. People of Mondstadt say she's everywhere. All you have to do is shout her name and she's there for you. No matter what, Noelle is always trying to help others before herself, and her kindness is to the point where she's even willing to put her life on the line for the sake of complete strangers, someone she doesn't even know. A good example of that is Noelle's third story, which reads, quote, "Once, she learned that an adventurer was trapped on Dragonspire, so she decided to mount a rescue by herself. The snowstorm that day was terribly fierce, wiping out any tracks left by humans as soon as they were made. It was impossible to find a safe route to proceed, to say nothing of saving the adventurer amidst the snow. However, Noelle persisted in searching for the adventurer and eventually found him in a cave, suffering from severe hypothermia. At that time, her coat was completely soaked, and the water inside her bottle had turned to ice. Thirsty and hungry, Noelle still managed to carry the adventurer down on her back. The adventurer was saved, but Noelle, having overexerted herself, laid in bed for 3 days straight, suffering from a high fever. Everyone in the Knights of Favonius barely slept out of concern for her during that period. Fortunately, Noelle recovered. It was not the first or second time that something similar had happened, and everyone was deeply worried for Noelle. In order to prevent Noelle from putting herself in harm's way again, Jean had to invent some safe jobs to keep Noelle busy. If something were to happen, then Kaya would have to save the day. At the time of that story, Noelle didn't even have her geovision. She was just an ordinary person, and that is what makes her extraordinary. She, as an ordinary person, decided to climb a freaking mountain in a snowstorm of all things, just to help someone she didn't even know. Noelle is that kind of person. Of course, sometimes her kindness and determination to help backfires in a good way. My favorite story about Noelle is her second story, in which she saves Mondstadt by scaring off an evil merchant with her excessive kindness. You can actually find the merchant and his daughter from the story at the Wangshuan. They'll give you a couple suspicious quotes about Mondstadt and their supposed business there. Anyways, back to the point of this video. As much as Noelle loves being a maid and helping others, she has her own dream too. Quote, "Like most of Mondstadt's young people, Noelle always dreamed of being a Knight of Favonius when she grew up," end quote. That dream meant everything to her, and unlike most people in Mondstadt that had chosen to grow up, face reality, give up on their dreams, Noelle didn't. She stayed true to her dream, and while working as a maid, she tirelessly took note after note on the knights around her on what it meant to be a Knight of Favonius, what it meant to be a shield for others.
As a good knight should.
But, as anyone who tries to follow their dream knows, life isn't all that smooth sailing. There comes a time when you start questioning yourself. Maybe it's time to face reality. Maybe, no matter how hard I work, achieving my dream is impossible. Noelle had a time like that too, and it was when she was on the verge of giving up that she received hope. And it's described in the final story to unlock her vision. Some years ago, after failing her 7th selection test, which was really a foregone conclusion, she felt somewhat discouraged. The etiquette, swordsmanship, the lines she had memorized, had they all gone to waste? She remembered all the strong points of every official knight, but who would remember the hard work of a failure like her?
I am a disgrace to the knights.
She had never stopped aspiring to become a Knight of Favonius, but her exhausted body wouldn't let her get back on her feet like she normally would. She felt like someone who had spent days and nights traveling through an icy tundra. At that moment, the main gate of the Knights' headquarters were flung open, and out walked acting Grandmaster Jean, who had just been in charge of the selection process. Without a thought, Noelle gave a precise knight's salute. Immediately, She knew that this was the abrupt thing to do, and wondered what Jean might think of her. But just as she was wishing that there was some hole she might crawl into to flee, Jean stopped in her tracks and returned the salute. After a moment's surprise, Noelle gave a strained smile, clumsy but pure. This was a lucky day that she would always remember, for she would receive recognition from two all-important sources this day, once from Jean and the other from the gods. Her hard work had been remembered after all. From that day forward, vision in hand, Noelle reaffirmed her belief that she would one day be able to don that armor, that she would be gentle and reliable, and yes, everywhere at once too. I just love this vision story of hers. It's so darn relatable. I can remember those times when I doubted myself as well. Is this really possible? Can I really do it? Maybe I should just give up. And seeing Noelle in that exact situation just brought all those feelings back. As for wanting to crawl into a hole after doing something embarrassing, yeah, those feelings are still here. Noelle's story is one that I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to. She has a dream that she decided to pursue with everything she has, heart and soul. She doubts herself, but in the end she doesn't give up. She receives acknowledgement that her hard work was not in vain. I find that kind of inspiring. She is a reminder that hard work doesn't go to waste. She gives us hope that maybe dreams just might be possible. Now, story-wise, Noelle hasn't become a knight just yet. Currently, there are no storylines with Noelle in the game, nor is she really mentioned, which is kind of a sad thing for me. But I'm sure in the future she will get her own quests, and in them, hopefully, Noelle will finally become a knight and we get to see her hard work pay off. And that's Noelle's story so far. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you want to stick around, I'll do a read aloud of the other stories that didn't impact Noelle's main story, but are still pretty interesting. Noelle is always eager to help, sometimes excessively so. If you were to ask her how to build a campfire as she passed by, she would not only stop and build the campfire for you, she would also put up the grill racks, season the food, cook it for you, taste it herself to make sure it's done, and remind you to put out the fire when you're finished so as not to burn the forest down. Then, she would get back to whatever she had been doing beforehand. Of course, most people don't mind at all that she regularly goes the extra mile, but sometimes it can produce unexpected results. For example, a merchant from Snezhnaya once came to Mondstadt, ostensibly wishing to get into the winery business. In truth, he had an evil plot to ruin the land, destroy the winery business in Mondstadt altogether, and then seize the markets with wines from Snezhnaya. He disguised himself as an honest merchant with his family on a business trip to Mondstadt. Naturally, with them being visitors from afar, Noelle gave them a warm reception. Initially, the merchant was delighted with Noelle's hospitality. It was a cut above the crude etiquette he had come to expect from most peasants in Mondstadt. However, after a while he began to feel something was amiss. Noelle seemed to be able to read his mind. She correctly guessed his schedule, cooked his family's favorite Snezhnayan dishes for them each day, and even knew that his daughter liked to go to bed hugging a rag doll, presenting her with a handmade doll she had sewn together herself. This spooked the merchant and made him hesitant to execute the next phase of his plan. Noelle's warm smile now chilled the merchant to the bone. What else did she know? And what was she really planning? In the end, the merchant fled Mondstadt with his family. Noelle was upset for a few days, thinking that she had somehow insulted her guests. Little did she know that all of Mondstadt was indebted to her for taking her job so seriously. Noelle is the maid of all maids to many. Such people also tend to say this of her: she's everywhere. For example, there's a child who once tried to get a plate during a banquet, but found that there was no way to open the cabinet without all the plates falling out. Noelle! All the child needed to do was scream, and Noelle appeared. She put the cabinet down on its back, took a plate out, and handed it to the child, reminding him not to have cold drinks immediately after having barbecue. Then, she righted the cabinet, cleaned up the other plates, and then put them back in order. Noelle's ability to be everywhere all at once is something miraculous to many. However, the job of a maid is no myth or legend. Noelle only does her job to the letter. No more, no less, as it should be, not as it should not be. Noelle doesn't think herself special, only that she thinks too much at times. Noelle's petite form does a good job of hiding her great strength. This does not just refer to her resoluteness or her indomitable spirit, but also her physical strength. Once, Lisa accidentally dropped her experimental apparatus under her bookshelf and troubled over whether she could remain decent while bending over to retrieve it. Noelle made it over in the nick of time, lifting the full bookshelf with only one hand. And not a single book fell out between her hefting it and putting it down. There was another incident in which several cargo-bearing carts were attacked by pyro-slimes as they tried to pass through Mondstadt's side gate. As the owners were all in a panic, it was Noelle again who came to the rescue, hurling the carts, cargo and all, into the cider lake before leaping into the water herself and retrieving every last item. Rumor has it that when Noelle was studying the blade, she nearly sent Wagner, who prided himself in his forging skills, into despairing seclusion. In all, he forged over 10 different swords with different alloy compositions for Noelle, but all would lose their edge after a few uses. At first, Wagner thought Noelle unskilled, but eventually he found that the problem was more foundational. The swords just weren't strong enough. Putting his reputation on the line, Wagner finally made Noelle a sturdy and heavy claymore that was further reinforced by her affinity for Geo. Only then was her weapon issue barely solved. But don't worry, Noelle won't use her superhuman strength unless the situation calls for it, as she is a pacifist at heart. They say, however, that very day Noelle received her custom-made claymore, she was set upon by a pair of drunken treasure hoarders who thought her a harmless lamb. Let's just hope that no one else will ever be so unlucky. Noelle's greatest enemy, curiously, is not a person, but Ludi Harpastum itself. During Ludi Harpastum, long tables arranged in a circular shape and filled with all kinds of food will be set up in the plaza before the cathedral for everyone to enjoy. The food is usually prepared by volunteers who can cook. During this time, Noelle, who always holds herself to a high standard, joins the volunteers in continuously cooking and serving food. It's not really any additional work. What's difficult is that she insists on tasting every dish to make sure they are up to standard. The crispy moon pies, the sizzling Mondstadt pork chops, the towering pile-em-ups, all the friend and barbecued foods, equal parts delicious and fatty, are customary at the festival. The smiles on people's faces make Noelle truly happy. What makes her less so is seeing her bulging belly. She can't help but let out a sigh. For the entire month following the festival, Noelle will volunteer for the Knights of Favonia City's night patrol. The festival may be over, but her battle is only beginning. Warning of the Roses. The Maids of the Knights have many red lines that are not to be crossed, and one of these is that the personal information of the Knights must be kept in strict confidence. This does not only require restricting outsider access to such information, this restriction also applies to other members of the Knights. For example, what Jean keeps in her private quarters, the content of Amber's Baron Bunny, the number of special eye patches that Kaya owns, the number of Klee's hidden bomb caches. These things are all top secret. To avoid leaking such information, Noelle used red cloth to make a great many roses. In Mondstadt, this flower means my lips are sealed. She specially wove one such rose into her gauntlet as an ever-present reminder to herself. Revealing secrets would be a major dereliction of duty for a maid, and those who aspire to be knights cannot afford such errors. So, you can forget about probing Noelle for any secrets. She won't tell. Lighter than air pancakes, Noelle's specialty. These thick pastries are the special afternoon snacks of the Knights of Favonius. They give people the sense that they have fallen upon a layer of fluffy clouds, and seeing Noelle's smile makes the feeling all the sweeter. Awesome guys, so that's the last bit. It's been a while since I started recording this, putting it together, so I'm gonna head off and go ahead and get some of my own lighter than air pancakes. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and take care guys. Bye bye.